let me help you dig deeper to call the bluff of no illegal migration from Bangladesh argument. Now look at the graphics on your screen with full attention. I'm comparing decadal population growth between districts of India and Bangladesh bordering each other in Bengal. Development blocks in Murshidabad like Raghunath Ganj, Samsher Ganj, Lal Gola and Bhagwan Gola had growth rates ranging from 25 to 37% in the period 2001 to 2011. While districts across the Ganga on Bangladesh side, Rajshahi and Nawabganj, both sharing their boundary with Murshidabad, had population growth of an average of 15% in the same period. The ethnic, linguistic, religious composition of the people on both the sides is same, the Bengali Muslims. But the population growth on Indian side of the border has been double that of on the Bangladesh side, clearly and mathematically suggesting mass migration, almost 100% of it illegal. Unfortunately, like in the case of United States, so in India, the moment you talk about illegal aliens enjoying citizen rights, it becomes a polarized political debate. The sentiment which brands SAVE Act as racist because illegals are predominantly non-white paints all opposition to Bangladeshi and Rohingyas as Hindu propaganda because most of them happen to be Muslims. Justice Mukhopadhyay was not an RSS apparatchik. He, in fact, got elevated to the Supreme Court under the Congress-led UPA government in 2013. Way back in 2005, again during the Congress-ruled UPA years, the Supreme Court had ruled that large-scale illegal migration from Bangladesh amounted to an act of aggression against India, that it was creating a state of panic in Assam and Bengal and a fear psychosis in other northeastern states. Again in 2008, the Delhi High Court ruled that illegal Bangladeshis present an internal security threat to India. There are latest examples of court rulings also, but I am deliberately quoting from Congress years only. Amidst the just concluded general elections, we had a video of a Trinamool leader in Barasat, Ratna Biswas, caught on tape talking about providing documents that would enable many suspect citizens to become voters. You might want to listen to the tape.
যদি লিংকের কোনো সমস্যা হয় বাংলাদেশ থেকে যারা এসেছে ভোটার লিস্টে নাম তোলার সমস্যা জাকিতা এই কাজটা ভালো করে দেবে।
Like in the case of the United States, so in India, the illegals have become a constituency, their votes determining a stand of some political parties, essentially in the Congress-left ecosystem. Like in the case of USA, same argument of humanist empathy is used to absorb the illegal migrant community. Innumerable instances of law and order, exasperation of the courts of the country, helplessness of legal officers, frustrations of police forces fade away before the lure of vote bank politics. There are at least a dozen cases under active investigation by India's ace anti-terror agency, the NIA, involving cadres of the banned Jamaat-ul Mujahideen Bangladesh, the JMB. It's banned in Bangladesh also, by the way. Now, the common thread in all these investigations is the safe harbor these terror operatives found in pockets of Bangladeshi immigrant colonies that dot the country now from Jammu to Bhopal to Bengaluru, and of course Bengal and Assam. Which argument to believe in the illegals debate? Oh, they should be absorbed in our country on grounds of strife or persecution, because India, after all, is a civilizationally open society. This argument, by the way, is proffered by the same set of people who say, oh, CAA, which allows persecuted Hindus and Sikhs from Pakistan and Afghanistan to become citizens of the country, is a communal law. I rest my case. Moving on to the second story this week. Last week saw former BJP leader Nupur Sharma becoming a topic of debate. Her comments on whether Hindus are violent seen as a response to Rahul Gandhi's Hinsak Hindus jibe in the parliament.
जब ऊंचे पदों पे बैठे लोग कह देते हैं हिंदू हिंसक हैं, ऊंचे पदों पे बैठ के लोग कह देते हैं सनातनियों का नरसंहार कर दो, जो मैंने देखा है पिछले 2 साल में, सनातनियों का नरसंहार करने की कोशिश की गई.
There was pain in her eyes while making that comment. Nupur has spent all of the last 2 years in the shadow of gun, in hiding. She has been under 24-hour security of commandos, facing Sar Tan se Juda threats that followed her defense of Hindu gods during the Kashi Gyanvapi debate in 2022. This brought focus on a subject that keeps lingering at the back of my mind, that of a Dara Hua Musalman in India. Nupur Sharma's banishment after those comments is not about Dara Hua Musalman. It is about a Dara Hua establishment. It is a reminder of the potency with which the Muslim community in the country, while harping on the theme of a disadvantaged minority, can still influence the narrative so strongly. We saw it in the case of the Citizenship Amendment Act protests in 2020. We have seen it in the case of Nupur Sharma episode. Every time a lynching happens, the narrative of Dara Hua Musalman becomes center stage, as if there is an organized pogrom out in play, an ethnic cleansweep targeting India's 200 million plus Muslims. An ecosystem of liberal press and community organizations comes into play to build the narrative, from Akhlaq of 2015 to Pehlu Khan in 2017, from Junaid and Nasir in 2023 to Farid of June of 2024. Each episode is turned into yet another instance of the Dara Hua Musalman project in a Hindu India. For every Akhlaq, there's an Ankit Sharma of Gopalganj. For every Pehlu Khan, there's a tailor Kanhaiya Lal of Udaipur. For every Junaid and Nasir, there's one Umesh Kole in Amravati. For every Farid, there's a Constable Ratan Lal in Delhi. I have details of each of these cases on both the sides of the divide. But does it even matter? The names, the cities, the triggers keep changing. Lynchings don't. The fact of narrative building does not. Even one lynching is too many. Even one is bad. Perhaps a societal problem with multi-layered factors. None proving Dara Hua Musalman. Only that these are symptomatic of a society with fault lines. Fault lines that have existed for at least 2 centuries and more. Gandhi and Nehru have tried to tackle them. Not Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Certainly not the cabal that wants to project India, that is Bharat, as a Lynchistan. On July 5, the Jamiyat Ulema-e-Hind, the Pan-India Council of Muslim Theologians, which also calls itself the biggest Muslim organization in the country and is seen as the most influential voice on Islamic affairs in the subcontinent, passed a few resolutions in its governing council meeting. Some of them, like concerning preserving of Muslim culture and religious education, have merit, and those in the government should address them in right earnest. But others clearly suggest hubris, demanding Muslim reservations and terming that as not motivated by religion is one of them. While in a democracy, everyone is entitled to their views, and the Jamiyat can put across its own on the Uniform Civil Code, to call for the entire community to fall back on Sharia amounts to swimming against the tide of national progress. UCC is not imposition of any alien cultural ethos on Islam. Uniform Civil Code is a constitutional mandate, and by no measure it translates into a Hindu Rashtra. But the one resolution that smacked of lack of honesty was the one demanding a law on Islamophobia in the country. That's where Dara Hua Musalman narrative gets pushed in. The Jamiyat can be excused for being a theology-driven organization not fully representative of the Muslims of India, much like the Vishwa Hindu Parishad does not represent the entire Hindu community, claims of both notwithstanding. last week also saw a video emerging from Bengal of a flogging, which according to those participating was Sharia compliant. The perpetrator, Tajamul alias JCB, thought he was doing a service to mankind with that flogging. This is not the India I want, or you want, or we want. This is not the India a billion-plus Indians want. Those pictures represent an abyss we have seen in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Both the perpetrator and the victims happen to be Muslims in this video. A red-faced Trinamool was forced to overlook vote bank compulsions and distance itself from the perpetrator. Stuff like that happens in Hindu India also, like the Khap Panchayat-style kangaroo court justice. But where's the Dara Hua Musalman? Also in Bengal, a preposterous claim was made by a very senior leader of the Trinamool Congress, Mamata confidant Firhad Hakim. He is mayor of Kolkata and a third-term minister in the Bengal government, no less. Speaking at an All India Quran competition event, Hakim invited non-Muslims to join Islam. Not only that, he projected non-Islamic faiths as lesser religions. Let's listen to him.
যারা দুর্ভাগ্য নিয়ে জন্মেছে, যারা ইসলাম নিয়ে জন্মায়নি, তাদেরও দাওয়াতে ইসলাম, অর্থাৎ ইসলামের দাওয়াত দিয়ে তাদের মধ্যে নিয়ত নিয়ে ঈমান নিয়ে আসলে এটা আল্লাহ তাআলাকে খুশি করা হবে।
Hakim is not a theologian. He is a veteran politician who even visits Durga Pujo pandals come Navratri. There's nothing that India as a nation can give to me as a Hindu that it has not given to Hakim as a Muslim, perhaps 100 times more. He can actually believe that his religion is the only way to heavens, but in private. For him to be doing it before cameras, clearly he is not a Dara Hua Musalman. None exists beyond the charade of the narrative. Thanks for watching.
Hotel Management with AI. Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Ключевым вопросом является обеспечение безопасности региона в целом и людей. Мы это обязательно сделаем, мы добьемся этого, сомнений нет никаких. Вижу и такие вещи, на которые нельзя не обращать внимания, связанные с тоже безопасностью. Это прежде всего, конечно, безопасность атомной электростанции Запорожской.
We also have Salvatore Babones, the American sociologist, joining us live on this broadcast. A very good afternoon, Mr. Babones. Firstly, how do you see this entire attempted assassination plot against Donald Trump?
This should be a wake-up call to Democrats who have run their campaign primarily on the argument that the election of Donald Trump means the end of American democracy. It's precisely that kind of inflammatory rhetoric that would lead a young, potentially a young idealist, we don't know much about the shooter other than that he was 20 years old, that would lead someone like that to want to become a hero, to think that by assassinating a presidential candidate, he may be saving America from the end of democracy. We really need to see that kind of rhetoric toned down in the United States. It's one thing for Donald Trump to use ridiculous language like, you know, Sleepy Joe, Crooked Hillary, Laughing Kamala. Okay, that's ridicule. But that's not calling for their assassination. The language from the Democratic side has been, you know, a much higher level of shrillness, warning that Donald Trump literally, and they use the word literally, that he will literally end American democracy. And you know, it's not surprising that someone took them at their word and took a shot at the former president.
But Mr. Babones, now, like you clearly pointed out, do you think that this is all because of the negative campaigning that has now taken over the political discourse? And how do you see its impact on the society going forward?
No, America has always had negative campaigning, and it's a romanticization of the past to think that negative campaigning is something new. People have been complaining about the negative tenor of American campaign rhetoric ever since I was a child, ever since the first election that I was old enough to really remember, which was the Jimmy Carter versus Ronald Reagan election of 1980. And from what I've read in the history books and in the period sources, that kind of negative campaigning went all the way back to the 19th century. This is nothing new. What is new is the claim that democracy itself is on the ballot. And Indians should be very aware of that, because of this, you've heard the same rhetoric in the run-up to the 2024 election in India. The Democratic Party in the United States really has to learn the lesson that if it wants to beat Donald Trump, it has to beat Donald Trump on the issues, not on this inflammatory notion that somehow if Donald Trump is elected, this will be the last election ever held. That's simply not true. Nobody really believes it's true, except perhaps for a young idealist, for an anarchist, for an Antifa identifying person, that is the American lingo for anti-fascist. These people hear the rhetoric and want to become heroes. Think that by shooting a candidate, they're saving the country.
So, Mr. Babones, like you said, that the elections are just around the corner and people have the right to vote. And if they feel that there is a negative campaigning being done by Donald Trump, they can always choose the ballot. But this time, we have a 20-year-old choosing the bullet to tackle this situation.
Absolutely, and that's really unfortunate. Now, it is a result to some extent of the inflammatory rhetoric. It's also the result of a clear lapse in security. Now, I'm a sociologist. I'm no security expert, but I have heard the security experts talking about the fact that the rooftops overlooking the podium absolutely should have been secured by the Secret Service. Now, whether that lapse of security is due to poor judgment on the part of the Secret Service, or, as some have suggested, a lack of resourcing of the Secret Service, is open to question. We have seen that the Biden administration has denied Secret Service protection to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who challenged Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination and is now running as an independent, who consistently gets 10% of the polling, 10% of the vote in presidential polls. He's a serious candidate, yet he has no Secret Service protection. So whether or not Trump's Secret Service protection may have been inadequate is something that, well, we can only hope will come out in investigations after this event.
Now, do you think that there will be an overall in the security cover that could be provided to political figures going ahead? And how do you think it will affect the protocols of these personalities?
Security is already extreme in the United States. The days are gone when an ordinary person could get anywhere close to a president or a major presidential candidate. You may remember that there was an assassination attempt against President Ronald Reagan in the early, I think it was 1982, if I have it right, when someone was able to just rush out of a crowd when the president was moving from a limousine into his into a building for his next appointment. These days, entire swaths of a city are locked down whenever a president or presidential candidate is traveling. So the security is truly astonishing, and that's why we haven't had serious assassination attempts in the last 40 years. It's not because America has suddenly gone peaceful. It's because the security has become so extreme.
Amity University Dubai has been awarded as the best university campus in the Middle East by Forbes magazine and recognized as the best university for job placements. Jumpstart your global career in Dubai with Amity, with faculty and students from over 50 nationalities. Visit amity.edu/Dubai.
Creating a world using sapphire to power change. Manufacturing semiconductors by resident Indians. India, pushing boundaries of possibility and innovating a brighter tomorrow. Semiconductors from India, now from Polymatic.
भाई किसके घर है, किसका भाई दुकान है, किसका मार्केट में उसकी दुकान है, भाई कारोबार है, एकदम तो खराब नहीं कर सकते ना, तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता खुद मर्जी से जाते कारोबार ख़त्म कर दे।
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
American Pistachio presents cracking news of the hour.
Bullet pierces upper part of Trump's right ear. Footage shows him grimace and raise a hand to his right ear before ducking as several sharp shots broke out. Fight, yells Donald Trump after bullet grazes his ear at Pennsylvania rally. Donald Trump issues a fresh statement, appeals for national resilience after shooting, says it is more important than ever that we stand united. FBI identifies shooter as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, says Crooks was from Bethel Park of Pennsylvania. AIMPLB to explore ways to overturn Supreme Court verdict on maintenance to Muslim women. I'm Suesha Samant and we take you through the details of the biggest story. Yes, Donald Trump was rushed off stage, smeared in blood after a series of gunshots were fired at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. As bangs ran out, Trump grimaced and clutched a hand to his right ear where blood was clearly visible across his cheek and mouth. We get you minute-to-minute details of what transpired in that assassination bid on Donald Trump.
No, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And
chaos erupted today at Republican candidate Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania when 7 rounds of shots were fired at the former president. The US presidential candidate could be seen reaching with his right hand towards his neck right before collapsing on the ground with clear signs of blood on his ear and neck. He quickly ducked behind the podium as agents from his protective details rushed onto the stage amid screams ringing out from the crowd. The screams turned to cheers as Trump raised a fist to the crowd in a show of strength while the agents escorted him roughly off the stage. Listen in to what an eyewitness had to say.
That's exactly where I heard him come from.
what did you see, sir?
I heard the shots. I thought it was firecrackers to begin with. Somebody over there was screaming, he's been shot. So I made my way over. I said, I'm an emergency department physician. Let me help you. The guy had spun around, was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here. There was lots of blood, and he had brain matter there. And so I got him. There's a helicopter coming in to get him. I got people there really helpful. I got him up on a bench.
Shot that you saw?
Then I did CPR, did chest compressions as well as I breathed for him.
One person.
Just to include you guys, we need to evacuate everybody.
reports suggest that the shooters, who were just 100 meters away from the rally site, were neutralized by the Secret Service counter-sniper team seconds after they started shooting. Trump, who was admitted in the hospital, is reportedly out of danger and has now been discharged. Law enforcement soon recovered an assault rifle that was used by the shooter. A flurry of reactions also came in, condemning the attack and showing support to Donald Trump, including President Joe Biden, VP Kamala Harris, former President Barack Obama, and former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Apart from this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also came out in support of Donald Trump. While the former president is now recovering, one attendee, however, lost his life in the shootout. The brazen attack on the presidential candidate has now once again underscored the glaring security lapses in the US and its gun policy.
And literally saved by a whisker as chaos ensued at Trump's Pennsylvania rally after shots rang out, injuring Donald Trump and two attendees, also killing another supporter, with FBI and US Secret Service probing the case. Here's what we know so far.
Take a look at what happened.
Donald Trump was shot in the ear during a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, resulting in his face being smeared with blood. What followed was chaos while the air was ringing with screams. The former president had a narrow escape. However, an attendee was killed while two others were injured before the shooter was shot dead.
As you know, there was a grandstand, a very large area, a lot of people there when this all unfolded. The former president had come out and begun to speak shortly after 6 o'clock this evening, and within about 10 to 15 minutes, a number of sounds were heard, and it became apparent that shots were being fired in that direction. It was a chaotic scene. Law enforcement, I believe, acted heroically, quickly identifying and neutralizing the threat, as well as responding to assist the various victims.
Law enforcement officials stated that the shooter has been identified as a 20-year-old Pennsylvanian local, Thomas Matthew Crook, who fired an AR-style rifle. Crook, reportedly a sharpshooter, was standing at the rooftop of a nearby building just 100 meters away from the site. The FBI and the US Secret Service are now investigating the case.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump. It's still an active crime scene. As I mentioned, we have a number of agents on scene. We also are working closely with other federal agencies, our state partners, and our local police partners as well.
The state police is also in a close coordination with the FBI.
The state police have been in regular contact with the governor's office, and the full support and assets of the entire agency are behind the FBI and our other federal and municipal partners to assist with this investigation. The thoughts and prayers of the Pennsylvania State Police are likewise with the victims of this terrible act.
We are working very closely with the FBI as we work through this. As you can imagine, because of the variety of crimes that have been committed, some are under federal jurisdiction, some are under state jurisdiction. And so, we're working through all of that, not an issue at all. We work seamlessly.
The FBI has meanwhile also stated that while they are swiftly probing the matter, the motive of the assassination bid has not been identified yet.
And well, the FBI has identified the shooter in the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump as a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. But what exactly is his history and who was he? You are getting all the details in this report. And well, as world leaders condemn in one voice the assassination bid on former US President Donald Trump at an election rally in Pennsylvania, there are larger questions glaring at the security lapses that may have aided the shooter. Here's that report.
Take a look at what happened.
The assassination attempt on Trump, who is seeking a second term in the country's highest office, has sent shockwaves across the globe. According to a report, the shooter was stationed barely 200 to 300 feet away from the rally area that was cordoned off. The report, quoting sources, said that the shooter, barely out of his teens, was on an elevated structure outside the cordoned off area, possibly a shed.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours.
The shooter, according to preliminary investigation, is believed to have fired from an AR-style rifle. A single bullet fired from an AR-style rifle is enough to blow apart a skull. There are questions how the shooter managed to get so close to the rally and discharge his firearm before being taken down. Was the venue of the rally and its immediate surroundings not sanitized for suspects as per standard security protocol? How did the shooter get a free shot at Trump despite such heavy security deployment at the venue? As the FBI and the US Secret Service carry forward the joint probe into the shocking assassination bid, it appears that the agencies themselves have a lot to answer for.
And well, considered a front-runner in the November 5 race for the White House, former US President Donald Trump has not just survived an attempt on his life, but myriad other challenges that many feared would impact his electoral prospects. Here's a report.
You want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Trump, who is bidding to return as president for a second term, overcame many legal challenges ahead of the November 5 election. He became the first former president in US history to be convicted of a felony offense after being found guilty in the hush money trial.
This is really a concerted witch hunt, very simple. Everything you heard in there, this is a witch hunt by numerous judges, Democrat judges. You take a look at it, and Doran is a whack job. What he did was a disgrace. It's being reviewed by the appellate division. And I hope they do justice, because everybody's looking, and no business is coming into the city.
He faces 4 criminal charges, including a conspiracy to defraud the United States and conspiring against the rights of citizens. Trump had already been accused by federal prosecutors of reversing the results and spreading lies about the election fraud. He was accused of exploiting the Capitol riots on January 6, 2021 to delay certification of Joe Biden's victory and stay in power. Trump was found guilty on 34 felony counts in the hush money trial. He was convicted of falsifying his business records in the case filed in connection with a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. A civil suit was also filed against Trump, accusing him of floating a scheme to misquote the value of his properties to lower his tax bill. Trump also faced a defamation suit by E. John Carroll, who accused him of sexual assault and battery in the 1990s. While the legal challenges did not hurt his bid for office, it remains to be seen if the failed assassination attempt gives the Trump campaign a further boost.
And well, amid the shock and global outrage over the failed assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump, there is a larger question that may have crossed many minds already. Does it help or hurt the Trump campaign ahead of the November 5 elections? Here's a report.
Take a look at what happened.
Trump was comfortably in the lead over his Democratic rival and incumbent Joe Biden ahead of the Pennsylvania rally. The failed assassination attempt is likely to come as a further shot in the arm for the Trump campaign. Viral image of Trump clenching his fist with blood oozing out of his right ear could make voters rally around him even more. a professor at the University of San Francisco, was quoted as saying in a report that the incident could amplify and elevate his image in the eyes of his supporters. A new poll published just 2 days ago said only 24% of the people in the US have faith in Biden's cognitive capabilities going into the November 5 elections. Biden, who was already facing an uphill task to save the Democratic campaign, could be set back even further after the failed assassination bid on Donald Trump.
And well, it was a narrow escape for Republican candidate Donald Trump, and a horrific one at that. He all but escaped with a grazed ear as bullets were fired and chaos erupted with the air ringing with screams. Tracking the ground pulse, we get you this report.
See something that said, take a look at what happened.
Former US President Donald Trump has had a narrow escape. 20-year-old Matthew Crooks attempted an assassination on Trump during his Pennsylvania rally.
It was just more like sounded like there were fireworks, and everybody kind of hesitated, like, what's happening? Before Trump swatted his ear, you could see that he actually had that he dropped, and that's when everybody had the initial reaction to drop to the ground, and it was just like people were just on top of each other. Like she was getting buried,
jumped on top of her.
And so it was crazy.
Eyewitnesses claimed that the shooter was easily spotted.
We had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farm and Greenhouse here. We had a party. And we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally, right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us.
The White House has condemned the cowardly incident.
The bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours.
Global leaders took to social media to echo their concerns. The chorus is one. There is no place for violence in politics. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that this was an inexcusable attack on democratic values.
Along with all Australians, I was shocked by the terrible scenes at former President Trump's campaign event in Pennsylvania. I'm relieved by the news that the former president is safe and doing fine, and I wish him and his family well. I applaud the swift work of US security agencies. I'm also saddened by reports that a member of the audience has lost their life and other attendees have been injured, and I send my condolences on behalf of Australia to their loved ones in this time of grief. Let us be clear. The people at this event, the candidate, the crowd, the free press covering it, were all participating in the democratic process. In Australia, as in the United States, the essence and the purpose of our democracies is that we can express our views, debate our disagreements, and resolve our differences peacefully.
all eyes are now on the probe into the Trump assassination bid.
And well, former US President Donald Trump had a very narrow escape after that assassination attempt at him while addressing a rally in Pennsylvania. In fact, this appears to be the first assassination attempt since Reagan was shot in 1981. In 2005, a grenade was hurled at the former President George W. Bush, but he escaped unharmed. The US history is marred with several such incidents. We take you through it.
Take a look at what happened.
In yet another shocking case of political violence, a bid to assassinate Donald Trump was made while he was addressing a rally in Pennsylvania. But Trump's is the 11th such case of an assassination attempt. In 1865, US President Abraham Lincoln was shot at the Ford's Theatre by John Wilkes Booth and died the next day, marking the first such case of assassination of a US president. Then in 1881, James Garfield succumbed to injuries months after being shot at by Charles Gouteau at a train station. In 1901, William McKinley died after being shot at during a public event. In 1912, an attempt to take Theodore Roosevelt's life was made at Wisconsin, but he recovered from the gunshot. An assassination attempt was also made on Franklin Roosevelt in 1933, but he survived the bid. However, Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak was killed. The assassin was sentenced to death. Harry Truman was targeted at Blair House in 1950. While he survived, 2 policemen lost their lives. In 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated, sending shockwaves across the world. The assassin was arrested but killed before the trial. Gerald Ford was subjected to 2 assassination attempts in both 1975 and 1981, but escaped both incidents without any injury. In 1981, Ronald Reagan was shot at outside a hotel but recovered from his injuries. In 2005, a grenade was hurled at George Bush, but he escaped unharmed. While the assassination bid on Trump is another such shocking incident in US politics, big questions now loom large. What does the bid to kill Trump mean for Trump, Biden, and the US as it faces elections in November?
American Pistachio presents Cracking News of the Hour.
On this episode of The Interview, we have a very special guest joining us, KT Rama Rao, the working president of BRS. Undoubtedly one of the most popular leaders of Telangana. But today he faces one of the most challenging battles of his political career. There was a point in time that the BRS was largely seen as a force to reckon with. But with the recently concluded Lok Sabha polls, the party finds it difficult to be together. But many say that KT Rama Rao is not new to challenges. Remember, he's the man, along with his father, who successfully led a social movement transitioning into governing a party. Thank you very much, KTR, for joining us on Republic TV. In fact, you are debuting on Republic TV, so let me thank you for that. Let me straight away begin by asking you the big challenges that you essentially face. There was a point in time, as I said, that your party was a force to reckon with. Today, there are several challenges. You say that you're going to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. How so?
Shaban, firstly, thank you for the opportunity. This is, as you said, my debut on Republic TV. Thank you. And congratulations on all the success, with respect to viewership. I think Republic is doing really well. My compliments. In every political party's life, I think you will see several highs and several lows. You'll have you'll have to weather a lot of storms before you can actually claim victory. 24 years ago, when the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, the TRS, was formed, everybody said it's an impossible dream. The achievement of statehood for Telangana was considered an impossible dream. But our leader said, what's life without an impossible dream? Now the journey started. It was a fight against all odds. In about 13, 14 years, we fought against some large behemoths like the Congress Party, like the Bharatiya Janata Party, the TDP, and many others. And eventually in 2014, the cookie did crumble as we predicted, and eventually Telangana state was delivered, had to be formed. And in the last 10 years after the formation of Telangana, we have achieved number of things, 2 successive terms of government, and we have achieved number of things that I can go on, but I think the show has to be extended by an hour. But I would rather not get into that. All I would say is, in 2023, when the assembly elections happened, the margin of difference between the victor and the runner-up, that is us, Congress and BRS, was about 4 lakh votes. In the entire state, which has 4 crore people, the difference was only 4 lakhs. So therefore, and we won about 1/3 of the seats in the assembly. We lost 14 seats by a whisker. So it was not like it's a huge defeat or there was a rout. Even if it were to be a rout, let me remind you, Shawan, regional parties, when they face a defeat, they have the ability to rise like a phoenix. You can take a look at Chandrababu Naidu ji. 5 years ago, his party faced a rout in Andhra, but today he's become indispensable to Prime Minister Modi. So therefore, all I'm saying is, it's a matter of time before we come back, because we know Congress ne jo yahan pe haseen sapne dikhaye, they can't deliver.
Mr. KTR, let me also perhaps share this, because I've not got this opportunity last time when I was in Hyderabad to tell you this, that even within the BJP, there were several leaders in the past who have basically commented about the welfare schemes that were essentially brought in by your government. And it did really work in the first term. The second term, you increased in terms of the DBTs and various other schemes that were brought in. But what really did not work? Some say it was because somewhere down the line, your legislators were arrogant. Some also say that you were of the opinion that these leaders, these legislators should be changed, but your father vetoed it. Your father wanted existing legislators to recontest. Is this true that you did not want the same legislators, you wanted fresh faces?
Shawan, you mentioned BJP. You said several BJP leaders also complimented. Let me ask you, and let me, I think, ask the viewers also to think. In 2014, Prime Minister Modi, emerged out of Gujarat and became the Prime Minister for the first time. 2018, he won an election back again with an increased majority, and it went up to 303 seats for BJP alone. But this time, the third time around, a fatigue factor has set in. The number from 303 has come down to 242. something very similar has happened to us as well. First election in 2014, we had won an absolute majority with 63 seats. In 2018, it was 88. Now it came down to 39, which is 21 short of the magic figure. So my point is, there could be a number of reasons. There could be the incumbency factor. There could be a few other things where a certain welfare scheme may not have achieved the desired result. But the fact is, there is also the general fatigue that has set in the third term, just like how Prime Minister Modi was affected. He was short of majority by 30 seats. Same thing with us. I think we were short of majority by 21 seats. Fortunately, he has friends for himself. Unfortunately, we didn't have many friends to support us.
You say you don't have enough friends, but is this something that you chose? The reason why I ask you this is that in the run-up to the elections, you were very clear. In fact, you blamed the media, saying that the media essentially thinks that it is a bipolar election, but that's not the case. Regional parties have something to offer. Would you now say that somewhere down the line, you perhaps made the mistake of not aligning with one of the national political parties in hindsight?
Shravan, I'll say one thing. If you look at Indian electorate and the way they've been voting in the last several elections, one thing emerges very, very clearly. And along with the statement I have made that this country is not bipolar, it doesn't belong to two parties, I had also said that the coalition era will begin from this election. And it has begun. My friend, please remember, it is the NDA government now, not BJP government anymore. BJP is short by 30, so we were partially wrong, partially right. When I said it's not bipolar, probably I was not fully right, but at the same time, I was also not off when I said this is the beginning again of a coalition era. And I can assure you, Shravan, this is just the beginning of coalition era. I don't see either BJP or Congress forming a government on their own in future. I think for the foreseeable future, it will be the strong regional players who will certainly continue to rule the roost, who will have enough number of seats, which will decide eventually which coalition will govern the country. So, yes, Indian population, Indian people, of course, have been very, very smart. In the state, if you look at how they've voted, there are several voters who could have voted for KCRG or who could have even voted for Congress, but at the center they could have voted for Modi ji or Rahul ji. So this dichotomy in the minds, कि assembly में कौन चाहिए, parliament में कौन चाहिए, that is something that the political parties have to wrap their heads around and come out with a strategy going forward. But I do believe very firmly that it will be the regional parties with significant chunk of seats which will continue to rule the roost. Look at Chandrababu Naidu ji right now. With his 16 members of parliament, he is asking for a $12 billion package from the union budget which is upcoming. So that is the kind of extraction of the respective pounds of flesh that I would want to see in a federal democracy.
But do you essentially see, while you are saying that the BJP, it's not the BJP government, it's the NDA government, let's look at the other side too. Today, let's admit it that you have a sizable opposition. The opposition has made noises within the parliament. Rahul Gandhi, as the leader of the opposition, at least the opposition indie bloc, seems to be thinking that, yes, they will not be muzzled any longer. Do you believe that this opposition unity will still continue? And where do you see yourself in it? Because in 2022, you rechristened your party from the TRS to the BRS, signaling national ambition. So where do you really see within these two blocks?
Well, again, Shravan, I'd say one thing. As a political party, when you have done very well in a state, there's no harm and nothing wrong in wanting to grow big, dream big, and eventually have national ambitions. I don't think that can be faulted. But at the same time, it is important to protect home base. And that's where I think we've faltered. So now our primary job is to come back in Telangana, bounce back strongly in the local body elections, recoup, re-energize, rejuvenate, and see how we can move forward in days to come. As far as the question about where do we fall, see, since the time Telangana was formed in 2014, we have supported the government on some issues, we have differed with them on some other issues. With respect to farm laws, we had a very, very clear stand. We said we will not support them we in fact voted against. Whereas in issues such as GST, the president election, the demonetization, vice president election, we stood by the government. So therefore, I think going forward as well, our policy will remain the same. We will support the government where the issue pertains to national interest. We'll support them. But where it becomes a challenge for us to ideologically, support the government or, stand by the opposition, we'll stand with the opposition. With respect to your question about whether the Indie bloc will remain as is, I am not a Jyotisha, I can't tell you. But I do know that these alliances and dalliances, are very, very fluid. Things change all the time in politics. So who knows what future has in store.
KTR, while I'm sitting in the national capital, I've been following your statements and perhaps a part of your political journey very closely. And I find this very surprising because I've seen you've been extremely vocal when it comes to Rahul Gandhi, but you haven't really been that very vocal when it comes to some statements that have been made by the BJP leaders. Now, for instance, a case in point is this. You're talking about the defections that have recently taken place within your party. Within the 6 months of the Congress government, you have about 6 MLAs, 6 MLCs and 2 of your MPs joining the Congress. Same is the case when it comes to some of your leaders joining the BJP, which includes your ex-MPs G. Nagesh from Adilabad, Ajmera, Sitaram Naik, and several others from the BJP too. You've had G. Kishan Reddy saying that we are opening up the party, let BRS leaders come in and join. You haven't been so vocal hitting out at the BJP when they have taken in your leaders, but you have been extremely vocal when the Congress has taken your leaders.
That's only because, Shravan, it's a very simple logic. There's nothing too complex in it. The principal opposition as far as the state is concerned for us is the Congress party. और हमारा एपिसेंटर है, हमारा पार्टी का पूरा स्ट्रेंथ है अगर कहीं तो आज तेलंगाना में है तो जहां कांग्रेस पार्टी
But the BJP is growing at your expense.
Well, I think the parliament election was an anomaly. BJP has not really grown. Because if you look at 2018 election, they had 1 MLA in Telangana out of 119. In 2023, they have 8 MLAs out of 119. Well, if you'd like to call that an 8-fold growth, yes. But is it enough to influence and become king or a kingmaker? I don't think so. The contest in Telangana is essentially between BRS and Congress. So therefore, you'd see a lot of riff-raff between us. And BJP here is a fringe player. So we would not really give them that kind of importance as what we would give the Congress in the state. In terms of national politics, of course, they had won 8 parliament seats recently. But like I said, it's an anomaly. The reason why I say it is an anomaly is because out of these 8 MPs that have won from BJP in Telangana, 4 of them had lost assembly election in the hands of BRS. That is where BRS trounced them. It was the Modi factor. It was the strong sentiment for Modi becoming Prime Minister again. That helped these gentlemen win in Telangana. And the vertical polarization that happened across the country. अगर आप कश्मीर से कन्याकुमारी तक अगर आप देखोगे, या तो आप एनडीए में हो तो आपने जीता क्योंकि मोदी जी को प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनाना था. अगर आप इंडी में हो तो इंडी में वाले इसलिए जीते क्योंकि मोदी को प्राइम मिनिस्टर नहीं बनाने था. बीच में जो भी था who was not aligned like us unfortunately suffered. If you look at Kerala, the ruling CPM, which is a government party in government there, they were not part of India Alliance. Out of 20, they got 1 seat. But in the next door neighbor, in the next door state, in Tamil Nadu, where they were part of the India Alliance, they won 2 seats. Move up to Andhra Pradesh, Jagan Reddy was routed only because he was not part of either of the 2 coalitions. In Telangana, same case with us. In Odisha, Biju Janata Dal had suffered the same fate. You go to UP, BSP has suffered the same fate. Go to Punjab, Akali Dal has suffered the same fate. So you look across the country, there's vertical polarization as far as parliament election is concerned. But when it comes to state politics and local elections, I think the regional parties have ruled the roost and they will continue to hold sway in the local elections.
Some say, KT Rama Rao, that there is a commonality between Jagan Mohan Reddy, KT Rama Rao and even Naveen Patnaik. And I find that very surprising. It's because they say that principally or behind closed doors, you would be far more comfortable dealing with the Bharatiya Janata Party simply on the lines that policies align. You, as the IT Minister of Telangana, several of the issues that you had raised was something that was complimented here in the national capital too, even by your adversaries. Many say that you would be far more comfortable, at least on issue-based, and just like Jagan Mohan Reddy, KT Rama Rao also operates in the same manner. And you would be far more comfortable with the BJP, and Rahul Gandhi still will remain your enemy number one.
Not really, Shravan, because, I think the commonality that you were trying to draw is confined only to one element, and the fact that Congress is basically a bigger force in Telangana and BJP is a lesser force. That's what, you would see in our interactions, you would see in our comments. We look at Congress as a bigger adversary, as a political opponent than the BJP. That's all I would say. There's not a lot of commonality in thought. I don't agree with their ideology. I don't agree with their philosophy. I don't agree with their worldview on a number of things. So therefore, I think I'd leave my comment at that, but I do not want to get into the argument on whether Jagan Reddy, Naveen Patnaik and we have anything in common, because I think that's a matter of perception.
Let me also now bring in the issues that you have raised while you were here in the national capital. This is with regards to what you say, that it's a charade of the Congress party of perhaps using the constitution as a prop. They are not the protectors of the constitution. But the argument that has been made, KT Rama Rao, is that while you were in power, defections happened, but you classified that by saying it's not defection, it is a merger. I want to just bring in one element to this argument that you've made. While yes, there is the TDP merger that you made, there is one back in 2014 when you came to power. You've had a BSP legislator, Indra Karan Reddy, joining you. So that's a defection largely that has been seen. So it is not absolutely correct to say that you did not encourage defection. You did at some level.
No, let me correct you, Shravan. The BSP had won 2 seats in Telangana in 2014. Both of them have joined in toto in TRS. So it was also a merger. The TDP had won 15. 10 have joined. Eventually that became a merger. The Congress had won 18 in 2018, and out of 18, 12 have merged. The defection law, anti-defection law is very, very clear. The 10th schedule of the Constitution is also very clear. If it is 2/3 of the members of a legislature party merging in another legislature party, it is allowed as per Constitution. What is happening in Telangana is slightly different. And let me also point you to one more thing, Shravan. In 1967, this whole culture of defection was started by the Congress party. One gentleman called as Mr. Gaya Lal from Haryana, who had won as an independent MLA, eventually switched to Congress. And then again, he went back to being an independent without any affiliation. And then he went back to Congress again. In a fortnight's time, it was the Gayaram and then Ayaram, Gayaram, Ayaram. So the culture of Ayaram, Gayaram was started by Congress. Eventually in 1985, it was Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi who brought in the anti-defection bill, which clearly said no member can defect from the elected party. Again, the anti-defection bill was amended to make it 2/3 in case a legislature party wants to merge into another. So in 2014, 2018, what the TRS and BRS had done was merger of legislature party into its legislature. What the Congress party today is doing in Telangana is unjust because of one simple reason. See, we never took the moral high ground and say that we will amend the 10th schedule and we will not allow for any MLA to change parties, which of course is the right thing to say. Rahul Gandhi comes to Telangana, introduces the national manifesto called Nyaya Patra, and he makes a tall claim. While 3 of the defectors are sitting on the same stage, he makes a tall claim saying we will amend the 10th schedule as part of Nyaya Patra. Also Rahul Gandhi, who calls himself the savior of the Constitution, upholds the Constitution in Parliament and makes this very, very emotional speech about how his party is upholding constitutional values. My request to Rahul Gandhi ji is merely holding the Constitution in your hands doesn't give you the right to talk about it. Uphold the constitutional values as well. If your party is engaging in defections here, and if you're complimenting and patting your chief minister on the back in your 24 Akbar Road office, Isn't that a dichotomy? दोगलापन नहीं है क्या? So इसीलिए मैं कहता हूं ये डबल स्टैंडर्ड्स, ए डाइकोटमी, ए हिपोक्रेसी जो आज कांग्रेस में है, इसको हम नेशनल लेवल पे एक्सपोज करना चाहते थे, इसीलिए हम दिल्ली आए और कांग्रेस को यहीं तक नहीं छोड़ेंगे। सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगे, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लब में प्रेस मीट करेंगे, प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया के पास जाएंगे, इलेक्शन कमीशन के पास जाएंगे, लोकसभा स्पीकर के पास भी जाएंगे, उनसे रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि राहुल जी को बताइए, अभी वो लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज को अपहोल्ड करना उनकी भी जिम्मेदारी है।
You say that the Chief Minister of Telangana, Revant Reddy, was inducing your legislators, parliamentarians. I want to perhaps take this a little forward. As a responsible leader, I'm sure you're making this statement because you have some evidence to that effect. I would really appreciate, Mr. KT Rama Rao, that why don't you tell our viewers what exactly are you really hinting at? What kind of inducement, what kind of poaching tactics that the Congress is employing in the state of Telangana?
See, the Congress party's hypocrisy is really baffling because मणिपुर में उनके एक एमएलए थे श्याम कुमार, जो जाके बीजेपी की गवर्नमेंट में, कोalition गवर्नमेंट में ज्वाइन हो गए एज मिनिस्टर. They fought a case. They took it to Supreme Court and eventually got the gentleman disqualified. In Himachal Pradesh, when 6 of the Congress MLAs voted for BJP candidate in Rajya Sabha, they made a hue and cry. In Goa, Rahul Gandhi ji goes there, makes the members of, the legislators who are going to contest on Congress B form take a shapath that they will not defect. In Haryana, when Kiran Chaudhary ji, who was a Congress MLA, joins BJP, Rahul Gandhi and Congress party take umbrage. In Maharashtra, Bala Saheb Thorat, the PCC president, says जो भी MLAs दल बदल रहे हैं, उनके ऊपर साम, दान, बेद, दंडोपाई किया जा रहा है. And in Karnataka, to top everything, now the chief minister, the incumbent chief minister, सिद्धरामैया जी says 50 करोड़ दे रहे हैं एक एक MLA को बीजेपी. तो इसीलिए मैं आज पूछना चाहता हूं राहुल गांधी जी से, अगर कर्नाटक में जो हमारे बगल में है, नेबर हैं, वहां अगर एमएलए की रेट 50 करोड़ है, तो आप क्या दाम लगा रहे हो, यहां पे कितना पैसा दे रहे हो? क्योंकि हम सभी लोग जानते हैं राहुल गांधी की पार्टी तेलंगाना में काफी रिच है, आरआर टैक्स वसूल करते हैं, तो हमें लगता है कि एमएलए का जो दाम कर्नाटक में लगाया गया.
Can I be more specific? You are saying that they are luring your MPs and your legislators by offering them money. Let's be specific.
Not just money, Shavan. Let me correct you, let me stop you. The same thing Modi ji is being accused of. Weaponization of agencies, filing cases, arm twisting, coercive tactics. All of these are being employed in Telangana today, including inducements and some favors being curried to them.
I want to take one final question, Mr. KT Rama Rao, before I let you go. I know it's a hypothetical question, but at the same time, don't say that you're not a Jyotishi, but you're certainly a leader who many would say has a vision. If tomorrow a situation basically comes up that you have to align because that's the compulsion, you say that it's a coalition era, so you will have to choose some sides at some point in time. Which side are you still a little bit more comfortable? Could be for any issue, could be for on issues of policy or whatever. Which side are you more comfortable?
I think I'll be very predictable on this, Shavan, and I'll say that कल किसने देखा? मैं तो यही कहूँगा कि मैं कोई ज्योतिष नहीं हूँ. फिलहाल तो हमारी मकसद यही है. Our sole job right now is to revive and bounce back in Telangana, and I do believe that this is just the beginning of a coalition era. In the foreseeable future, neither Congress nor BJP will be able to form a government on their own. So therefore, I think it's important for regional parties to strengthen themselves, bounce back in parliament as well, get some seats so that you can extract your own pound of flesh for the benefit of the state, for the benefit of your people.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you, Mr. KT Rama Rao. Thank you very much for taking out the time. And as they say, in politics, you should never write an obituary for anyone, and especially for a leader like you who's been crisscrossing the state. We're hoping that you'll be able to take up people's issues. Thank you very much. Well, that was KT Rama Rao joining us on the interview, once again taking on the Congress party, saying that they are anything but the protectors of the Constitution.
Amity University, Dubai has been awarded as the best university campus in the Middle East by Forbes magazine and recognized as the best university for job placements. Jumpstart your global career in Dubai with Amity, with faculty and students from over 50 nationalities. Visit amity.edu/Dubai.
Hotel Management with AI. Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted. Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted. Now, with respect to the jury, I don't imagine you all want to return on Monday. I will take care of the jury.
Thank you. American Pistachio presents cracking news of the hour.
Amity University, Dubai has been awarded as the best university campus in the Middle East by Forbes magazine and recognized as the best university for job placements. Jumpstart your global career in Dubai with Amity, with faculty and students from over 50 nationalities. Visit amity.edu/Dubai.
Hotel Management with AI. Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Sì, ho parlato con Biden in diverse occasioni, mi ha fatto una bella impressione del Presidente degli Stati Uniti d'America.
L'ho visto lucido?
L'ho visto bene. Sì.
Presidente.
We have the young guns in their 20s to startup founders who have truly found their calling towards technology in their late 40s. So we can see that technology knows no age bar.
This event is basically aimed at celebrating the spirit of drive that is there between all of us, within all of us. I believe if you are successful in the journey, the rest of it comes together. In my last 7 years as an entrepreneur, through my ups and downs, I have enjoyed every minute of the journey. The beauty of entrepreneurship and the application of technology is you can never put it down in an Excel sheet. This event today celebrates that confluence between technology and entrepreneurship. I look forward to a world where we will all collaborate together, all of us working in the field of technology, application of technology, entrepreneurship, where the opportunities are absolutely limitless.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
We have the young guns in their 20s to startup founders who have truly found their calling towards technology in their late 40s. So we can see that technology knows no age bar.
This event is basically aimed at celebrating the spirit of drive that is there between all of us, within all of us. I believe if you are successful in the journey, the rest of it comes together. In my last 7 years as an entrepreneur, through my ups and downs, I have enjoyed every minute of the journey.
What happened? Take a look at what happened.
Right ear footage shows him grimace and raise a hand to his right ear before ducking. Possible security lapses in focus after Trump injured in rally shooting. Donald Trump issues a fresh statement after assassination bid, appeals for national resilience. After shooting, he says it's more important than ever that we stand united. Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old named by the FBI as the subject involved in the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, shot down. FBI says he was resident for Bethel Park of Pennsylvania. Prime Minister Modi becomes most followed world leader on X with over 100 million followers, says he's happy to be on this vibrant medium.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट में ये बात कही गई है कि ये इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ विमेन है, ये इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ विमेन नहीं है, बल्कि हम महसूस करते हैं कि औरतों के लिए ये एक मुसीबत बन जाएगा.
India's All India Muslim Personal Law Board finds Apex Court's verdict on divorce alimony against religion, says will challenge the verdict in the Supreme Court next. Welcome viewers, early evening Saturday, that's early Sunday morning here. Donald Trump was shot at while giving a stump speech in Pennsylvania. The former president survived with the assailant's bullet grazing past his right ear. There's no danger to Trump's life, but the attempt on his life has sent politics of the United States into a tizzy. It's likely that an already polarized election might become even more toxic. There's an element of mystery behind the attack as well. Serious lapses in following security protocols have emerged. The fact that it came just a day before the Republican National Convention begins in Milwaukee. While Trump as Republican nominee was already a foregone conclusion, what it means for the Democrats is struggling with Biden's leadership amid a widely reported mental decline is a question that arises. Also, what it speaks of the preachy Uncle Sam, the same United States which pontificates on Arvind Kejriwal's arrest in India, expects supportive voices from around the world for its democracy in tatters. We'll discuss all that tonight, but let's look at the bare bones facts of what exactly happened in those moments when Trump was targeted by that 20-year-old Thomas Matthews Crooks.
Take a look at what happened.
Pennsylvania witnessed a deadly assassination attempt of former US President Donald Trump. Fortunately, the president had a narrow escape. While Trump was addressing his supporters in Butler, 7 bullets were suddenly fired at the podium. And one of the bullets grazed the right ear of the former president. As the deadly scene unfolded, Trump ducked and took cover behind the podium. And within no time, the Secret Service agents secured him by forming a human shield. There was panic at the venue as one of Trump's supporters was killed and 2 others were left injured. The sniper camp on the roof of the adjacent building then located the shooter and neutralized him. Unfazed at the assassination bid, Donald Trump pumped his fist in the air in show of strength and the crowd erupted in cheers. The former US president roared "Fight" as he was being guarded by the security officials. He was then whisked away to the hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, listen into these testimonies of eyewitnesses from the venue.
We're pointing at them. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
After availing treatment, Donald Trump was released from the hospital. He then headed to his private golf club in New Jersey, where the former president will spend his night taking rest. The FBI and US Secret Service are now investigating the incident further, while the motive remains shrouded in mystery.
The first thing I want to say is that the FBI stands with the people of Butler County in western Pennsylvania, and our hearts go out to the victims of this heinous act which occurred today. This is our community, and I want to let the public know that the FBI has deployed a number of our resources, including investigative agents.
According to the White House, President Joe Biden, who is running against Trump, cut short his scheduled Delaware visit and was briefed on the incident. Biden also spoke to Trump hours after the shooting. With the US still reeling from the shocking attempt on Trump's life, the big question is, what's about to unfold on November 5?
All right, before we get that panel of guests, let's just get more details of what has actually transpired since the attack happened on Trump. In fact, world leaders have come out and condemned in one voice the assassination bid on the former US president. And there are larger questions still. The glaring security lapses that happened, point by point, you can see that between the Secret Service and the local police, they just failed to plug the gaps with the shooter taking that vantage from where he shot at the former president. Look at those lapses.
What happened?
The assassination attempt on Trump, who is seeking a second term in the country's highest office, has sent shockwaves across the globe. According to a report, The shooter was stationed barely 200 to 300 feet away from the rally area that was cordoned off. The report, quoting sources, said that the shooter, barely out of his teens, was on an elevated structure outside the cordoned off area, possibly a shed.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours.
The shooter, according to preliminary investigation, is believed to have fired from an AR-style rifle. A single bullet fired from an AR-style rifle is enough to blow apart a skull. There are questions how the shooter managed to get so close to the rally and discharge his firearm before being taken down. Was the venue of the rally and its immediate surroundings not sanitized for suspects as per standard security protocol? How did the shooter get a free shot at Trump despite such heavy security deployment at the venue? As the FBI and the US Secret Service carry forward the joint probe into the shocking assassination bid, it appears that the agencies themselves have a lot to answer for.
All right, now that we have the facts, we'll have a panel of guests joining us in a bit. There seems some connectivity issue. I can see some of those guests joining and getting disconnected, but I'm told Professor Mohsin Raza Khan, Professor of Politics, Professor of Practice in Political Science and International Relations is joining us live from Delhi, as also Dr. Swasti Rao, and she's Europe and Eurasia Center expert, Europe Center. She's with the Europe Center of the Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis. And in a bit, we are also going to have Major Gaurav Arya for a very Indian strategic perspective. But if I could begin with you, Dr. Swasti Rao, how do you see this development of Donald Trump being targeted in the manner that he was? It's sure going to put the American politics heading into election cycle into a bit more turmoil.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Good evening to you. And we all just got up with this very shocking news today on Sunday morning in India, around, I think, 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, when we sort of learned that something like this, an assassination attempt has happened during a rally in Pennsylvania. And now, of course, we know more details about who that shooter was, how old he was, what kind of a weapon he used. But end of the day, you have to understand that it is a more complicated phenomena of why is there the culture of political violence so embedded in the state of America. And what has happened, in my opinion, has obviously raised certain questions on whether this particular embeddedness of this violent political culture is now making American state even more weakened and even more in a chaos than it already was. Because I don't think anybody can undermine the chaos that emerged from the two presidential candidates, talking. And one could see that Joe Biden almost could not even remember his own name. I mean, things had gotten bad to that extent. So now when you have something like this, obviously I feel that the swing states perhaps would swing more in the favor of Trump. And I think he's also, if I'm not wrong, he's also called for unity, and he's also put up a very iconic figure in the sense of resistance, because right after he was shot, he got up and he got himself photographed. And I think that a photograph is quite a defining moment for the rest of the world. And very quickly, I also want to sort of pose a larger question and make this larger observation about what is going wrong with Western democracies. Okay, on the one hand, they seem so fond of, calling out against whatever they deem fit. I don't know what is the data that they use, what is the methodology they employ on what is happening in India. But at the same time, here is a country with 960 million eligible voters, 600 million, votes being cast amidst 1.5 billion people, and we don't have anything like this. Now, one can sort of still understand if it is a one-off event, right? And it is important because something similar happened in Japan when Shinzo Abe, when President Shinzo or Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was actually assassinated. Now, it is not a one-off. The problem is it is not a one-off incident in America. There has been a series of this kind of a political violence. I mean, this culture of political violence. And because I follow Europe, and I'm also intrigued about how I can draw certain similarities with the rise of right-wing and the kind of political chaos that led on the streets of Paris, for example, chaos and emergency descended the streets of Paris. So I feel that we are at a stage where if they are interested in sort of learning how to conduct peaceful elections, they perhaps can look around, and India can be a good case study. Back to you.
A good sarcasm, Dr. Rao, but I think the point that you make about the rise of right, which somehow the traditional establishment in these Euro-Atlantic societies is not able to accept, digest, live with. Professor Mohsin Raza Khan, you think this is about hatred for Trump really coming out by way of that 20-year-old boy using that assault rifle and targeting him?
The interesting question is, what impact will this have on the elections? So I think it won't have a big impact, because we saw a similar assassination attempt with President Reagan in 1981. And there was a bump up, a 2-month bump that Reagan got out of it. But 2 months later, things had settled down and polling was back to where it was before the assassination attempt. So there'll be a slight bump for Donald Trump as well. But I think it won't last. And I think, again, the attention will shift to President Biden and whether he will continue or whether he will be replaced. Americans have had these kind of attempts in the past. It's maybe this generation hasn't seen it, but since the assassination attempt on Andrew Jackson, and then, Lincoln, where it succeeded. In the case of Andrew Jackson, it didn't succeed. Then we have seen success in the case of John F. Kennedy and his brother as a candidate, Robert Kennedy. And we have seen failed attempts in the case of Gerald Ford, in the case of Reagan and many others. So the United States is not alien to this because of the gun culture there.
Absolutely right, Professor Khan. You're right that this is the U.S. political history is not alien to these kind of political targetings of the occupant of the highest office. In fact, the US might have an unwanted distinction as a democracy of their presidents or presidential candidates getting targeted highest number of times. I think Donald Trump happens to be the 12th or 13th president/candidate getting targeted for an assassination bid. And it does not seem like a very welcome distinction for a democracy, but unfortunately that seems to be happening so often. Major Gaurav Varya, you think that this is happening because it's so easy to procure an assault rifle in the United States, or there are deeper reasons? But first up, about the assault rifle thing, a 20-year-old boy getting an assault rifle just fresh out of high school, getting an assault rifle so easily. We'll go into the lapses later, but the fact that a 20-year-old boy has an assault rifle with which he can target a former president of the United States speaks volumes about the society, in fact.
Thank you for inviting me, Abhishek. It is not just about a 20-year-old getting an assault rifle. There are certain states in the southern part of the United States of America where you can order an assault rifle online. They'll deliver it to your home. There are people there. If you go on YouTube, there are videos there. You'll see people who have tanks, who have anti-aircraft guns. So assault rifle is a very, very small thing. It's in India, we think it's an assault rifle because here, there are no weapons. You can't see weapons apart from very archaic and old weapons out in the street. But in America, it's pretty common, especially the southern states. Assault rifles. My point is not whether he got an assault rifle or not. My point is that in spite of the Secret Service, how did he get less than 150 yards, which is nothing, 150 yards, and they knew that this place where they were having this, function with Donald Trump, there were buildings, there were abandoned factory buildings there. There were buildings in which the work was not being done. And in the sense that there was no workers, there were buildings that were unoccupied at that point in time. And apparently, I just read it somewhere in some news platform, that somebody actually warned the police that there is an active shooter on the roof.
Yeah.
Before that guy pulled the trigger. So clearly a lapse on the part of the Secret Service also, because Secret Service is the be-all and end-all of VIP protection in the world. They should have occupied all the roofs and they should have had, drones and choppers up in the sky. I don't know why they didn't see. And it's not like he fired from 1 kilometer. It's not like he fired from 150 yards or less.
Absolutely.
Which is nothing.
In fact, Major, we just a while back ran the package on what were the lapses, and interesting. I in fact noted them down as we saw those coming out in those pictures. The presence of the assailant, crooks, was missed by the security on their own. Remember, when the protectee is to come at the venue, before that, the security apparatus is in a state of high alert. And there is a security sweep that's going on in real time when the protectee comes. And so they did not see or notice crooks on their own. That's number one. So what kind of pre-event sweep was carried out, for example? Then the vantage point of the warehouse, it was left unguarded, unattended. Now, typically as it happens, it's absolutely poor application of security mind there while you are carrying out that what is called the advanced security liaison, right? And I would want General Kulkarni to come in on this as I narrate these lapses that happened. The shooter was in fact, forget about these lapses, beforehand, before the protectee, in this case Donald Trump, comes in, the shooter was spotted by some of the participants in the rally, and it was flagged to the cops present there, the local police perhaps, if not the Secret Service. And yet no action happened. General Kulkarni, you get an idea that this is preposterous, absolutely unbelievable.
Absolutely, there's no denying apart, but a society which is totally polarized. It's amazing. Almost something what you find now in our own country, a polarized society where there's hatred, violence, there is no opposition, there is nothing like this thing. It's all enmity. The kind of language being used, the values that are there, it's a very different setup. And in that context, this lone wolf, if he's a lone wolf because he's already shot dead, or he's a part of a bigger gang, or he's a part of a narrative which is already there. Like Gaurav rightly said, you can't get someone so close as 150 yards. The fact that he has been escorted, like you rightly said, the police was also reported, not bothered to even look into it, what was going on. And the first shot he fired, and consequently about 8 odd rounds that he fired, then he shot at, indicated that how close, first, the security lapse, second, a polarized society that didn't care, third, Trump has lots of enemies. There's no denying the fact. Trump is a factor which is seen as something, an opponent in the United States or anywhere in a democracy. Look at our democracy, the world's largest democracy and the world's oldest democracy. A survey is conducted, and when it comes to governance, what is the kind of percentage which is with the government? Just about 25% people like democracy when it comes to governance in the United States of America. And when it comes to India, it's almost 70%. So there's a lot. The security lapse is definitely there. That's because of Trump is being seen as an enemy. He's seen as a threat to democracy. Constitution under threat. Democracy under threat. The kind of language, the kind of relationship, family values gone down. And the gun culture in America, you can get, like Gaurav said, anywhere. You can get a weapon online. That's not a problem at all. And again, the divide will be between the society. So these kind of things, drugs that are playing a big, huge role. The money being funded to people all around. unemployment that is over there. So all these factors are playing a huge role. And ideologically, people can be swayed. 20-year-old boy, his crook has become a real big crook. At this age, he's a crook. So you can well imagine what kind of a person is he. So that is the kind of society that one is in. So one has to be very, very careful, and it's a lesson learned for all of us. Thank God Trump is safe. I would put it that way, and I'm sure he's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. General Kulkarni, in fact, I have to introduce two more guests that we have on the panel, Professor Madhav Nalapat and Pathikat Pine, both domain experts of international relations and security and strategic affairs. And if I could get in Professor Nalapat first. Professor Nalapat, we have been discussing about the security lapses, but I think it's beyond that. You know, it's no happenstance that tomorrow the Republican National Convention is starting in Milwaukee, a traditionally Democrat city, and just a day before that, this attack on Trump happens. Somebody is sending a message somewhere, right?
Well, the shooter would definitely have known that the RNC is meeting and that Trump would be nominated. So he'd be one of maybe more than 100 million or even more Americans who know that. So there have been terrible security lapses, and there has been a very vituperative atmosphere created, especially against Donald Trump. I mean, sorry to say, President Biden said he's, in the bullseye or things like words to that effect. And these are words that one should never use because they're used in connection with shooting. So, but the point is very simple. And the main point is, politically, I think Trump is going to be very difficult to beat after this particular event. He was already difficult to beat, definitely impossible for Biden to meet, but today it's impossible for Biden to defeat, definitely, but it's also becoming very difficult for any other Democratic challenger to defeat, because he has shown an example of courage under fire. And very importantly, as soon as the bullet grazed his ear, he ducked. The Secret Service should have pushed him down. They didn't. Trump himself ducked, and that saved his life. I think 2 or 3 more rounds turned up. And frankly, 2 people were killed by rounds going astray. And, if he had not ducked spontaneously, well, the Secret Service, pushed him down after he was already down. Let's put it that way. And that is very unfortunate. I don't think there's any conspiracy or anything behind it. It's just pure carelessness and possibly shock. But Secret Service agents in a security detail dealing with an ex-president are not supposed to be shocked. They're supposed to react properly. But having said that, I think this is now Trump's election, and I find it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to beat him. As for Joe Biden, every day everybody is going to ask, you yourself said that this is absolutely unacceptable. Yes, but how did it happen? You yourself said it should never happen. Yes, how did it happen? It happened under your watch. So frankly, I think Joe Biden is now electoral toast where Donald Trump is concerned. If the Democrats ever nominate him or keep him in there as a standard bearer, he is going to fight a battle that is lost from today.
Professor Nalapat, you are absolutely right. You have to give it to Donald Trump that he was courage under fire, a picture of courage under fire. And there was, in fact, this additional security lapse, I would say, that when the president is attacked, he is ducking. The nearest Secret Service agent is at least 5 to 7 meters away. It does not happen. You have to, what is close proximity protection? If you are at least 5 to 7 meters away in a situation like this. So obviously there are multiple security lapses, and this happens to be one of them. But, for a 20-year-old to be motivated enough to pick up a gun and shoot at a former president just ahead of the RNC is symptomatic of the kind of hate that's there for Trump. And before I go back to Swasti Rao and get in Pathikat Pine, I have in fact compiled the number of abuses that were being hurled on Donald Trump over the last, say, 5-6 months or more. the manner in which he has been called a dictator, compared with Hitler, Mussolini, and the way it is said so often on national TV in the United States that if Trump comes back, he would be compromising democracy. Let's look at that compilation of abuse on Trump. Then I come back to this conversation. All my guests, please stay back in just 2 minutes.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Various labels and accusations have time and again been leveled at the former US president.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face.
They said he does not abide by democratic ideals. They even compared him to tyrants like Mussolini and Hitler.
A lot of people have tried to draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler and the use of the terminology like vermin and the drive that those men had towards autocracy and dictatorship. The difference, though, I think makes Donald Trump even more dangerous, and that is he has no philosophy he believes in. He is not trying to expand the boundaries of the United States of America. He's not trying to overcome a neighboring country like Putin is in Ukraine. He is not going for some grandiose scheme of international dominance. All he wants is to look in the mirror and see a guy who's president.
Is this rhetoric exactly what led to the failed assassination bid? As the nation navigates this situation, one question looms large. For how long will the common man ignore the far-reaching consequences held by rhetoric?
Right, Sastri Rao, you would have heard some of those comments of American politicians at the very senior level. Nancy Pelosi, former leader of the former speaker, then former Senator Claire McCaskill, among others. They're saying he's enemy of the state. They're saying he's worse than Hitler and Mussolini. They're saying he's more dangerous. So obviously, all this contributed to an echo chamber where a young, out of high school boy like Thomas Matthew Crooks thought that let's eliminate Trump before he becomes the presidential candidate of the Republican Party in Milwaukee.
Yes, it is indeed dangerous because I see a rise of an intolerance that America criticizes in the rest of the countries all over the world. Let me not get into the very obvious fact of how the procedural democracy indices are very high in the US. We are not talking about that. And nobody here is so naive to not understand that what happened today in terms of the assassination attempt is not the same as saying that America cannot hold free or fair elections. So we are not drawing a false equivalence when we are saying that America, what happened today would have an implication on undermining the essence and ethos of a democratic America. Okay, it is not procedural. I'm talking about something which is more substantive, and I'm trying to make a very, I would say, a subtle point here. I mean, I don't think anybody here has forgotten what happened right after the attack, the Hamas attack on Israel, the way anti-Semitism was on a rise. I would not say on a rise, on a surge, on a whirlpool in all these Ivy League American universities. I'm sure nobody here has forgotten how the presidents of Harvard University, Pennsylvania University, and MIT, the three most prominent that I can remember, they've been facing questions from the Congress about why and how they've been so, I would say, why have they allowed this kind of a, very violent response to whatever they think is not okay in their larger scheme of belief, whatever that may be, if it is a liberal order, if it is an identitarian order, whatever the hell it may be. But the point is that why has America and these beacons of knowledge that the US has, right? Why have they systematically allowed for this kind of a mental violence to take root? And now I want to connect it to what you were just saying about about this 20-year-old boy. Obviously, he's not a jihadi. Obviously, he did not do a mujahideen, act out there. I'm sure Major Gaurav would talk about that more. So obviously, it's not that. But we see that the American society, and you see a lot of them, they've been pushed to a point where if they see that there is a different kind of a politics happening, they want to subvert all possible political and democratic institutions of the state and perhaps just kill them outright. So this is a wake-up call of where America is affecting or hollowing out its own youth and everything else. The gun culture, lapse, security lapse, no security lapse, those are all very secondary and tertiary factors. End of the day, I mean, what kind of an American society are we looking at? And like I said, this is not an isolation. To me, this is very much a same kind of echo chamber that I saw at the time of these, this very, I would say, very violent form of wokeism actually being manifested again and again in American society. So I would perhaps connect these two and would be very worried about them.
Right. In fact, I wanted to understand the implications for India, and for that I'll come to Pathikrit and Professor Madhav Nalapat in a bit. But since we have two more guests joining in from the United States, Dr. Joseph Chalil, he's author and publisher of Universal News Network. He's joining us live from Florida. And Adel Nazrian, she's Senior Fellow of the Gold Institute of for International Strategy, and she's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Adel, how's this mood like in D.C.? I mean, this is very serious, and this casts, that this really takes away from the Democrats and the left this whole moral high ground of not being violent. I think this is going to have consequences for the elections in the United States.
Oh, it absolutely will have consequences for the elections in the United States. I think if you were to ask me a week ago, a year ago, a month ago, even a few days ago, if Donald Trump is going to win the election in November, I'd still tell you I'm on the fence. I don't think he has necessarily what it takes to pull it off. But after yesterday, what was pulled off, I think he's going to be in a much stronger lead and has a much higher chance of winning it come November. And the mood in Washington, D.C., the mood in the U.S., to just answer your question, is, D.C. is not a very Trump-friendly, state. There's a lot of, progressives there, and it just, all the coastal towns, Washington, D.C., New York City, Los Angeles, California, it tends to have a little more of a political left-leaning bent ideologically. So they're actually, some of them are, floating conspiracy theories around. Some of them are actually coming out and saying, I predict Trump's going to lose, Pennsylvania by 1 point. And a lot of them are just kind of keeping their mouths shut and putting out very, very, very politically correct diplomatic responses and saying, we wish Trump a full recovery. But I think if they really had their druthers about them, they'd probably say, oh, we wish the shooter wouldn't have missed. That's the kind of sentiment that I'm kind of seeing from people in Washington, D.C., of course.
Right. Isn't that really unfortunate? In fact, let me get in Joseph Chalil. Joseph Chalil, Professor Nalapat earlier made a comment that this really paves the way for Donald Trump to become the 47th president of the United States. There is no stopping him. From Pennsylvania to the Pennsylvania Avenue, the road is cleared now. So you think that's the sense there on the ground in the United States?
I would say, again, America was very lucky yesterday. I think, again, Trump and the party, again, was really blessed, saving his life by just 1 centimeter difference. I was watching it live, seeing how what's happening over there. And, maybe it could be just a whiff of air because, again, it's a sniper rifle from a football field away by a young guy, maybe with military training or not. We will never know until now. But again, and the timing of it, to be on the last day or the last rally before he takes over as the presidential nominee, once he becomes the presidential nominee, his protection, his Secret Service protection will be equivalent to that of President Biden. So this wouldn't have been possible. So just to have that choice of the location, for him to have access to this rooftop 1 football field away, and Trump, I think, again, God's grace was saved. And of course, there are 1 fatality, and I was told there's 2 critically wounded attendees of the rally. But his success is now, I can definitely say, guaranteed.
Right.
There is no way, even Democrats who are calling for Biden to step down, at this point, they've stopped it, because at this point, they're asking, what's the purpose of stepping down? Even if they bring in Gavin Newsom, if they bring in somebody else, I don't think any of them will have any choice. Even if they put Kamala Harris, there'll be no way Trump will now lose.
There's no stopping Trump. Pathikit Pine, in a way, this is very familiar. The manner in which we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi getting abused in India, not just during the campaign, but even earlier. In fact, going as far back as 2013, remember those bomb blasts that took place in his Patna rally where 6 participants lost their life, and there was in fact a bomb right under the stage from where Prime Minister spoke at the rally. So this culture of abuse, creating an echo chamber where someone gets motivated with an assault rifle. In other cases, someone gets motivated, or a group gets motivated with bombs. I think this is about the political culture. We are familiar, and the United States democracy as it is also taking the same route.
Well, Abhishek, they're getting the taste of something that they have outsourced and sold to the rest of the world for a long time. The wokeism which is affecting us is actually emanating from that place. Let me tell you what the leftist and this urban Maoist culture do. They actually dehumanize their opposition to that extent that they justify violence. They can justify anything. That is the level that they vilify. They do it to your opponent. And probably in India, had Prime Minister Modi got 400 seats, we know what was being planned out. But I'm not surprised with what has happened in the United States, where kids go to school wearing bulletproof jackets because they never know where another 20-year-old guy would come and shoot them. Why are we surprised with this? Now look at the hypocrisy of the so-called liberals. They would prefer a person as a president who is living in a completely different delusional world. With all due respect to his age, he waves hand with a different kind of a dimensional world. He does all kinds of things which normal human beings cannot understand. And at the same time, you see a presidential candidate being assassinated almost. And why do we call it carelessness? I mean, the Secret Service could not identify the guy when he was roaming around, when people were identifying. The moment the shot was fired, he was shot dead. He was no attempt. I would rather ask, was any attempt made to immobilize him so that the trail can be brought out? And then the report suddenly comes, he's a Republican voter registered. That means this is a classic case of plausible deniability being created beforehand. So I'm not surprised, because for a long period of time, the Democrats said that we are the ones who are peace-loving, but for the sake of peace during the Obama era, look at the number of countries destroyed, from Syria to Libya, from what was done to Afghanistan to Iraq. And now the so-called liberal Democrats in power, what is happening in Middle East, what is happening in the Ukraine war. And here was a Trump, which according to them would have destroyed Constitution, the same narrative that was created in India against Prime Minister Modi. And during the Trump era was the only time when United States was not in a full-fledged war against any other country. Let me tell you, anybody in United States who is against conflict is an enemy of the state de facto. Whether he is President Trump or somebody else who says that this is not an era of war, because the military-industrial complex cannot survive unless and until the wars continue, Abhishek. So I'm not surprised of this kind of culture which has permeated down into America, where mentally, if not physically, they are at a state of civil war.
That's a fantastic argument you have brought in, Pathakrit, in fact, and I wonder why I missed it, but thanks for bringing it in. The fact that Donald Trump is very vocally not pro-Ukraine, the fact that he's not very enthused about NATO, the fact that he is not as harshly anti-Putin as most of the Western capitals and the leaders there are. And on that, if I could get in Swasti Rao, because Swasti closely tracks Europe. Swasti, you think, this is a conspiracy theory, obviously, but then essentially a message being sent that any administration that comes after November can't be or shouldn't be soft on Putin or harsh on Ukraine.
Well, I mean, by whatever metrics I know and whatever knowledge I have and whatever I can think in terms of following this region for a while, I think this is a very far-fetched idea, because I'm glad you started out with this thing, calling it a allegedly conspiracy kind of thinking. I mean, we as scholars would never rule out anything until and unless we get absolute validation for or against it. However, in my opinion, see, even the support, even Ukraine and the relation with Trump is not really understood very well, because a lot of people perhaps miss the point that it was actually Trump administration who really started militarizing Zelensky's, Ukraine before Biden became president. So this is a particular, if you talk to the Ukrainians, for example, of course they would want somebody like Biden to be there, because Biden is obviously much more, pro-NATO and pro-Europe and all that merging of the two security theaters, etc., etc. But at the same time, there is also a thinking within Ukraine that says that, yes, there is going to be uncertainty, but at the same time, let's not forget that it was also, it was the Trump administration who actually started all that militarization in the first place. The training, the CIA-led trainings where all the, other Western powers had joined hands, etc. The effect of which you probably see today. So that's one part. The other part is that that still remains, looms in uncertainty. Yeah. The other thing that you see happening in these countries is they are trying to do what is now referred to as Trump-proofing. So they are trying to Trump-proof NATO as well as European security. And the question is, will they run out of time till the time they really are able to do something tangible in that?
And Swasti Rao, since we are discussing conspiracy theories, quick comment from Joseph Chalil, before I go to Professor Nalapat. Joseph Chalil, as I said, we are discussing conspiracy theories. Since Trump juggernaut was not stopping and the Democrats were at their wits' ends, because Joe Biden is at his wits' ends and is in a state of mental decline. So did the deep state sort of create this so that they can tell Joe Biden, now it's even more difficult for the Democrats to win, so please make way for somebody who can at least pose a challenge to Trump?
They tried everything to stop Trump. They tried to sue him, to put him in jail. They tried to make him, he's a convicted felon. They tried to stop him from running. Then, even after everything, the truth came out regarding Biden's, decline in mental status and all these gaffes in the recent things. I think that the time was out for them. There's one thing which some of us brought up is that there is wokeism now coming into Secret Service. Okay. So the new director of Secret Service was very interested in creating quotas, especially for women, for other sexes into Secret Service. That was her pet project. So, and then not keeping the quality. So reducing standards, in the Secret Service, to increase the quotas for gays, lesbians, and women. Is that the right way to protect your president? Standard operating protocol calls for 6 counter snipers in every rallies like this. I was told there was only 2. So was it that Trump was denied access to drones and additional counter sniper personnel and Secret Service agents to cover such event?
That's another conspiracy theory, in fact, that additional security measures were sought by the Trump campaign and those were denied by the administration. But, this whole democracy debate, Professor Madhav Nalapat, I'm moving on. You see, flip this episode a bit. Instead of United States, imagine this is Dhaka in Bangladesh. And an assassination attempt has happened on Begum Khalida Zia. What would be the position of the State Department spokesperson of the United States? Professor Madhav Nalapat, Uncle Sam don't preach. I think that seems to be the message coming out of this. When you pontificate on the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal or the disqualification of Rahul Gandhi, there has to be some line drawn somewhere, right, Professor Nalapat?
Well, look, I'd like to say, Abhishek, that I don't believe in any of these conspiracy theories. But the fact is, the majority of the American electorate is going to believe in them, given the circumstances in which Donald Trump was almost killed. So any conspiracy theory, no matter how wild, will be believed. And of course, you have seasoned analysts such as Tucker Carlson, who warned in advance that there's going to be an assassination attempt. Yeah. But the fact is that I'm not going to go into that. The fact is, at least from 2017 onwards, he may have started arming Ukraine and all that, that's fine. From 2017 onward, Donald Trump understood we are in Cold War 2.0. The adversary is China, not Russia. And that just as, China was brought into the US camp during Cold War 1.2, Russia needs to be somehow brought into the US camp and to the Democratic Party camp, by the way. It's also the India camp. It's also the Quad camp during Cold War 2.0. So he realized that. And so did Prime Minister Modi. I mean, both as Chief Minister and as Prime Minister, by the grace of God, Prime Minister Modi has gone through several such attempts. And the reason is the same. The inflammatory rhetoric against him, as it was against Donald Trump. Totally inflammatory, totally one-sided, totally hateful, by the same people who are saying, oh my God, hate is very bad. We shouldn't have hate. And then they're spouting this about Donald Trump or Prime Minister Modi. So that there's no doubt about that. I'd like to just say, Shinzo Abe, he knew what the China threat was. He was assassinated. You had Fico, who frankly did not follow the European Union line on several issues in Slovakia. He was sought to be assassinated. And you had Trump, who was sought to be assassinated, who again does not want to follow the standard EU or the Atlanticist line, and who really wants to focus on the new threat, which is China. So the common link between all these leaders is actually focus on the real new threat, rather than keep hopping back to a threat that's over and done with in 1991. And this threat has begun in the 21st century. And for nearly 15 years, Abhishek, guess who was providing huge amounts of technology to China for them to weaponize against the United States, against Taiwan, against South Korea, against Japan. The very countries that I'm naming are the people who armed and equipped China even during this 21st century. So I can only say, Abhishek, that Donald Trump or Prime Minister Modi or Shinzo Abe, they had one thing very clear in mind. The threat is China. Don't be diverted into Russia or Europe. The threat is in Asia. It's a threat of control of the Indo-Pacific and the Eurasian continent. I think that's the important point that we can't miss. That, in my view, is a common link binding all these individuals who have been assassinated.
Professor Nalapat, absolutely, but since you say that it's a given now that Trump is going to win the elections later this year, I have a factoid brought into my notice by a young boy on our output team, Arth, according to which, twice it has happened that candidates who faced an assassination attempt, Theodore Roosevelt in 1912 and Gerald Ford in 1975-76, in fact, 2 assassination bids on him, both lost. So it's not necessary that an assassination attempt guarantees that you're going to win election. Adil, you think that kind of thinking would be the fancy of the Democrats in Washington, D.C. today?
No, Abhishek. So Donald Trump is an entirely different kettle of fish, from the individuals that you mentioned. They're very different kettle of fish. United States is very different from what it was then. And I can tell you, in my reckoning, yes, this is going to supercharge the Trump campaign, and it's going to supercharge his popularity and his acceptability. Not just the fact that he escaped assassination, but the bravery he showed under fire. The courage he showed. He himself has been gone now, and then he showed extraordinary bravery under fire. And we have a senior military analyst here. He knows what bravery under fire is. Well, Trump showed that. And I think American voters will respond.
Right, Professor Nalapat. Quickly, Adil, you think that this opens a window of opportunity for the Democrats to change their presidential candidate? Remember, their convention is happening in August, so they still have a time, some time, a month before, in which they can actually think of replacing Biden with somebody else?
Yeah, I think that they definitely, I want to address the last question too after this, but basically they have a choice to replace Biden. They could replace him with Kamala Harris, although I think she'll get clobbered in a general election against Trump.
Right.
You have Gavin, who definitely looks the part, but I know him personally. Look, he's a smart guy, but he just is he's way too much, doesn't have a backbone when it comes to doing what's best for the country. He was more concerned with what's popular for his voting and won't do the right thing.
Right.
I don't think they have enough time to switch candidates. It's just way too long. They may end up just sticking to President Biden and trying to, Soros wants to stick to Biden, and that's what they're going to do. I just want to point something out.
Another conspiracy theory you bring in, Adele, of Soros in the picture. But I'm running out of time. Major Gaurav Arya, last word to you. When we were growing up as teenagers in 1990s, maybe you were a little ahead of us, we would be impressed with those pictures of a young Bill Clinton or a younger Tony Blair vis-a-vis our own gerontocracy of, Inder Kumar Gujral, pouting P.V. Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee with his knee problems. And now you look at the picture. You have a gerontocracy like Joe Biden and Donald Trump effectively, and the Americans have no other options on both the sides.
No, absolutely, Abhishek. When Trump calls Joe Biden old, it's a little bit rich, because Trump is not that young either. He's just 3 or 4 years younger. But anyway, having said that, thank God he's safe. And this is certainly a civilian, because no soldier will miss at 130 yards. I mean, you have an AR 130 yards and this guy goes for a headshot.
Yeah.
He must be absolutely crazy. He's not a soldier, because the soldier would have certainly got the target. But having said that, thank God he's safe. But certainly it will give it will give a lot of sympathy to Trump, because Trump already has it. It's going to build on that.
Abhishek, can I add one last point that I think is very important to note here?
Quickly, Adele, I've run out of time. Quickly, 10 seconds.
Hey, Democrats in the Homeland Security Committee introduced legislation called the Disgraced Former Presidents Act recently that would strip Trump of his Secret Service protection because he was convicted in District Attorney Alvin Bragg's kangaroo court. Imagine that. If he becomes president, the Democrats are trying to strip him of Secret Service protection. This happened just before this assassination attempt.
Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, obviously, there are so many theories there, but I have run out of time. Notice the United States, as the strongest democracy, needs to present a better picture for the rest of the world to still continue to respect them. It's unfortunate, the events of the last 24 hours, and hope the US picks up the threads from here and does better. On that note, thank you so much, friends, and short break. Live and Breaking is on the other side. Arnab Goswami back with the debate tomorrow, 8 p.m.
American Pistachio presents Cracking News of the Hour.
Hotel Management with AI. Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Sì, ho parlato con Biden in diverse occasioni e mi ha fatto una bella impressione del Presidente degli Stati Uniti d'America.
L'ho visto lucido?
L'ho visto bene. Sì.
Presidente.
Largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Take a look at what happened.
Bullet pierces upper part of Trump's right ear. Footage shows his grimace and raise a hand to his right ear before ducking. Possible security lapses in focus after Trump injured in rally shooting. Donald Trump issues fresh statement after assassination bid. Appeals for national resilience after shooting. He says it is more important than ever that we stand united. Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old named by the FBI as the subject involved in the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, shut down. FBI says he was a resident from Pennsylvania. Prime Minister Modi becomes most followed world leader on X with over 100 million followers, says he is happy to be on this vibrant medium.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट में ये बात कही गई है कि ये इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ विमेन है, ये इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ विमेन नहीं है, बल्कि हम महसूस करते हैं कि औरतों के लिए ये एक मुसीबत बन जाएगा।
India's Muslim board finds Apex Court's verdict on divorce alimony against religion, says will challenge the verdict in Supreme Court next. Suesha Sawant, and we take you through the details of the biggest story. Yes, Donald Trump was rushed off stage, smeared in blood after a series of gunshots were fired at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. As bangs ran out, Trump grimaced and clutched a hand to his right ear, where blood was clearly visible across his cheek and mouth. We get you minute-to-minute details of what transpired in that assassination bid on Donald Trump.
You know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And
chaos erupted today at Republican candidate Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania when 7 rounds of shots were fired at the former president. The US presidential candidate could be seen reaching with his right hand towards his neck right before collapsing on the ground, with clear signs of blood on his ear and neck. He quickly ducked behind the podium as agents from his protective detail rushed onto the stage amid screams ringing out from the crowd. The screams turned to cheers as Trump raised a fist to the crowd in a show of strength while the agents escorted him roughly off the stage. Listen in to what an eyewitness had to say.
Honor, that's exactly where I heard him come from.
What did you see, sir?
I heard the shots. I thought it was firecrackers to begin with. Somebody over there was screaming, he's been shot. So I made my way over. I said, I'm an emergency department physician. Let me help you. The guy had spun around, was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here. There was lots of blood, and he had brain matter there. And so I got him. There's a helicopter coming in to get him. I got people there really helpful. I got him up on the bench.
Shot that you saw?
Then I did CPR, did chest compressions as well as I breathed for him.
One person.
Just to include you guys, we need to evacuate everybody.
Reports suggest that the shooters, who were just 100 meters away from the rally site, were neutralized by the Secret Service counter-sniper team seconds after they started shooting. Trump, who was admitted in the hospital, is reportedly out of danger and has now been discharged. Law enforcement soon recovered an assault rifle that was used by the shooter. A flurry of reactions also came in, condemning the attack and showing support to Donald Trump, including President Joe Biden, VP Kamala Harris, former President Barack Obama, and former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Apart from this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also came out in support of Donald Trump. While the former president is now recovering, one attendee, however, lost his life in the shootout. The brazen attack on the presidential candidate has now, once again, underscored the glaring security lapses in the US and its gun policy.
And literally saved by a whisker as chaos ensued at Trump's Pennsylvania rally after shots rang out, injuring Donald Trump and two attendees, also killing another supporter, with FBI and US Secret Service probing the case. Here's what we know so far.
Take a look at what happened.
Donald Trump was shot in the ear during a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, resulting in his face being smeared with blood. What followed was chaos while the air was ringing with screams. The former president had a narrow escape. However, an attendee was killed while two others were injured before the shooter was shot dead.
As you know, there was a grandstand, a very large area, a lot of people there when this all unfolded. The former president had come out and begun to speak shortly after 6 o'clock this evening. And within about 10 to 15 minutes, a number of sounds were heard, and it became apparent that shots were being fired in that direction. It was a chaotic scene. Law enforcement, I believe, acted heroically, quickly identifying and neutralizing the threat, as well as responding to assist the various victims.
Law enforcement officials stated that the shooter has been identified as a 20-year-old Pennsylvanian local, Thomas Matthew Crook, who fired an AR-style rifle. Crook, reportedly a sharpshooter, was standing at the rooftop of a nearby building, just 100 meters away from the site. The FBI and the US Secret Service are now investigating the case.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump. It's still an active crime scene. As I mentioned, we have a number of agents on scene. We also are working closely with other federal agencies, our state partners, and our local police partners as well.
The state police is also in a close coordination with the FBI.
The state police have been in regular contact with the governor's office and the full
support and assets of the entire agency are behind the FBI and our other federal and municipal partners to assist with this investigation. The thoughts and prayers of the Pennsylvania State Police are likewise with the victims of this terrible act.
We are working very closely with the FBI as we work through this. As you can imagine, because of the variety of crimes that have been committed, some are under federal jurisdiction, some are under state jurisdiction. And so, we're working through all of that, not an issue at all. We work seamlessly.
The FBI has meanwhile also stated that while they are swiftly probing the matter, the motive of the assassination bid has not been identified yet.
And well, the FBI has identified the shooter in the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump as a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. But what exactly is his history and who was he? We are getting you all the details in this report.
Like they said, take a look at what happened.
And well, as world leaders condemn in one voice the assassination bid on former US President Donald Trump at an election rally in Pennsylvania, there are larger questions glaring at the security lapses that may have aided the shooter. Here's that report.
Take a look at what happened.
The assassination attempt on Trump, who is seeking a second term in the country's highest office, has sent shockwaves across the globe. According to a report, the shooter was stationed barely 200 to 300 feet away from the rally area that was cordoned off. The report, quoting sources, said that the shooter, barely out of his teens, was on an elevated structure outside the cordoned off area, possibly a shed.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours.
The shooter, according to preliminary investigation, is believed to have fired from an AR-style rifle. A single bullet fired from an AR-style rifle is enough to blow apart a skull. There are questions how the shooter managed to get so close to the rally and discharge his firearm before being taken down. Was the venue of the rally and its immediate surroundings not sanitized for suspects as per standard security protocol? How did the shooter get a free shot at Trump despite such heavy security deployment at the venue? As the FBI and the US Secret Service carry forward the joint probe into the shocking assassination bid, it appears that the agencies themselves have a lot to answer for.
And well considered a front-runner in the November 5 race for the White House, former US President Donald Trump has not just survived an attempt on his life, but myriad other challenges that many feared would impact his electoral prospects. Here's a report.
You want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Trump, who is bidding to return as president for a second term, overcame many legal challenges ahead of the November 5 election. He became the first former president in US history to be convicted of a felony offense after being found guilty in the hush money trial.
This is really a concerted witch hunt, very simple. Everything you heard in there, this is a witch hunt by numerous judges, Democrat judges. You take a look at it, and Engoron is a whack job. What he did was a disgrace. It's being reviewed by the appellate division. And I hope they do justice because everybody's looking and no business is coming into the city.
He faces 4 criminal charges, including a conspiracy to defraud the United States and conspiring against the rights of citizens. Trump had already been accused by federal prosecutors of reversing the results and spreading lies about the election fraud. He was accused of exploiting the Capitol riots on January 6, 2021 to delay certification of Joe Biden's victory and stay in power. Trump was found guilty on 34 felony counts in the hush money trial. He was convicted of falsifying his business records in the case filed in connection with a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. A civil suit was also filed against Trump, accusing him of floating a scheme to misquote the value of his properties to lower his tax bill. Trump also faced a defamation suit by E. Jean Carroll, who accused him of sexual assault and battery in the 1990s. While the legal challenges did not hurt his bid for office, it remains to be seen if the failed assassination attempt gives the Trump campaign a further boost.
And well, amid the shock and global outrage over the failed assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump, there is a larger question that may have crossed many minds already. Does it help or hurt the Trump campaign ahead of the November 5 elections? Here's a report.
Take a look at what happened.
Trump was comfortably in the lead over his Democratic rival and incumbent Joe Biden ahead of the Pennsylvania rally. The failed assassination attempt is likely to come as a further shot in the arm for the Trump campaign. Viral image of Trump clenching his fist with blood oozing out of his right ear could make voters rally around him even more. A professor at the University of San Francisco was quoted as saying in a report that the incident could amplify and elevate his image in the eyes of his supporters. A new poll published just 2 days ago said only 24% of the people in the US have faith in Biden's cognitive capabilities going into the November 5 elections. Biden, who was already facing an uphill task to save the Democratic campaign, could be set back even further after the failed assassination bid on Donald Trump.
And well, it was a narrow escape for Republican candidate Donald Trump, and a horrific one at that. He all but escaped with a grazed ear as bullets were fired and chaos erupted with the air ringing with screams. Tracking the ground pulse, we get you this report.
See something that said, take a look at what happened.
Former US President Donald Trump has had a narrow escape. 20-year-old Matthew Crooks attempted an assassination on Trump during his Pennsylvania rally.
It was just more like sounded like there were fireworks, and everybody kind of hesitated, like, what's happening? Before Trump swatted his ear, you could see that he actually had that he dropped, and that's when everybody had the initial reaction to drop to the ground, and it was just like people were just on top of each other. Like she was getting buried,
jumped on top of her.
And so it was crazy.
Eyewitnesses claimed that the shooter was easily spotted.
We had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farm and Greenhouse here. We had a party. And we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally, right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us.
The White House has condemned the cowardly incident.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours.
Global leaders took to social media to echo their concerns. The chorus is one. There is no place for violence in politics. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that this was an inexcusable attack on democratic values.
Along with all Australians, I was shocked by the terrible scenes at former President Trump's campaign event in Pennsylvania. I'm relieved by the news that the former president is safe and doing fine, and I wish him and his family well. I applaud the swift work of US security agencies. I'm also saddened by reports that a member of the audience has lost their life and other attendees have been injured, and I send my condolences on behalf of Australia to their loved ones in this time of grief. Let us be clear. The people at this event, the candidate, the crowd, the free press covering it, were all participating in the democratic process. In Australia, as in the United States, the essence and the purpose of our democracies is that we can express our views, debate our disagreements, and resolve our differences peacefully.
All eyes are now on the probe into the Trump assassination bid.
And well, former US President Donald Trump had a very narrow escape after that assassination attempt at him while addressing a rally in Pennsylvania. In fact, this appears to be the first assassination attempt since Reagan was shot in 1981. In 2005, a grenade was hurled at the former President George W. Bush, but he escaped unharmed. The US history is marred with several such incidents. We take you through it.
Take a look at what happened.